The story takes place in a small, remote village called Bolipur in India, located on the outskirts of Kolkata. This mysterious and unsettling series of events is said to have occurred in the 1960s. At the time, Bolipur was a quaint village with a river flowing along one side. The river was an essential part of daily life for the villagers. It provided water for bathing, a source of fish, and a transportation route connecting Bolipur to neighboring villages. Up to 5 boats could be seen docked at its banks at any given time. On the opposite side of the village lay a dense and eerie forest, uninhabited and avoided by the locals. Legends passed down among the villagers warned that anyone who ventured into the forest would never return. Over the years, many people who entered its depths had vanished without a trace, giving rise to ominous rumors and an enduring sense of dread surrounding the forest. Though life in Bolipur was simple, it remained deeply connected to the land and its surroundings. At the time, the village was home to roughly 300 families, most of whom were Muslim. The area was not densely populated, and the nearest village was at least 10 kilometers away, a significant distance when traveling by foot or boat. It was nearing the end of winter when the tranquility of Bolipur was disturbed. The villagers began to notice something strange. Animals seemed to be disappearing. At first, it was the birds. Their calls, once a constant backdrop to village life, had suddenly gone silent. It wasn't long before there were no birds left to be seen, neither large nor small. Curiously, domesticated animals like chickens, goats, cows, dogs, and cats remained unaffected. The villagers, preoccupied with their agricultural work, did not initially give much thought to the situation. Some speculated that the birds might have migrated due to seasonal changes or food shortages, while others thought they might have sought refuge in the forest. Days turned into weeks, and still, not a single bird returned. A growing unease began to fester within the community. One night, as the village lay shrouded in darkness beneath a starry sky, Pradeep Thakur, a local resident, stepped out of his house to use the outdoor washroom some distance away. On his way back, he made an alarming discovery: a group of 15 to 20 enormous birds standing together in the distance. According to Pradeep, these birds were unlike any he had ever seen before. Their faces bore an uncanny resemblance to something inhuman, burnt and grotesque, almost resembling ostriches, but far more sinister. The flock abruptly turned toward the direction of the forbidden forest and vanished into the shadows. The following morning, Pradeep recounted his chilling experience to his neighbors. Some believed him. Others dismissed his story as a figment of the imagination or perhaps a trick of the night. Nevertheless, whispers began circulating among the community, adding fuel to their collective anxiety. Then, just 2 days later, another strange event occurred. At dawn one day, an elderly man suddenly appeared in the village. He seemed to be around 50 or older and looked disheveled, his behavior giving off an air of madness. Without uttering a single word to anyone, he walked through the village until he reached a tamarind tree at a 3-road junction. There, he sat down beneath its shade and began mumbling incoherent words while closing his eyes. Curiosity gripped the villagers as they watched this peculiar figure from a distance. Many approached him with questions, asking who he was, where he came from, or why he had come, but he offered no response. His silence inspired rumors. Some claimed he was a government spy. Others believed he had come to steal resources. Some even suggested he posed a spiritual threat and should be driven out of Bolipur. Despite these fears and suspicions, the village council, known as the Panchayat, decided that no harm should come to the man and urged everyone not to disturb him unnecessarily. Respecting their elders' advice, most people refrained from questioning or confronting him further. For days, villagers noticed the man's peculiar habits. He never spoke or acknowledged anyone's presence, but would silently engage in prayer at certain intervals each day. Word of his solitary prayers started spreading through Bolipur. Over time, his strange behavior began inspiring reverence in some of the villagers. Though no one could identify who he was or what he wanted with their small village, they began to perceive him as someone with an otherworldly connection or purpose. In a small village, the residents regularly left food out for a local madman who had become somewhat of a fixture in their community. When they later collected their plates and glasses, they always found them clean, evidence that he had eaten with care. However, something peculiar started happening near the spot where the madman typically sat under a large teal tree. Birds began to gather in numbers, and within days, their cheerful chirping filled the village once again, restoring a sound long absent. By the end of 10 days, the village seemed alive with the vibrant presence of birds. The madman then took up an odd habit. Each day, he visited various houses and sprinkled a glass of water, moving from one home to the next. He continued this routine for 10 to 12 houses, without ever explaining his actions. On one particular day, after he sprinkled water near a house belonging to a man named unexplained, an incident occurred. The next morning, Unta woke to find 2 of his prized cows missing from his herd. As panic set in, he searched everywhere but could find no trace of them. Suspicion quickly turned toward the madman, since he had been at the neighboring house the night before, mysteriously sprinkling water. Without stopping to question him or verify their suspicions, the men of the household rushed to confront the madman and attacked him violently. As they beat him, he cried out in unintelligible noises, drawing the attention of nearby villagers. Some intervened, realizing that this man was harmless and perhaps incapable of the theft they accused him of. Cooler heads prevailed, and they decided to take the matter to the village panchayat. At the gathering, the madman was asked repeatedly, through gestures, if he had any knowledge of the missing cows. He denied everything but struggled to communicate further about his intentions or his origins. Frustrated by his silence and unable to make sense of his gestures, the crowd grew restless. At one point, blood began to trickle from wounds inflicted during the earlier beating, and in a sudden desperate motion, the madman pointed toward the sky and raised his hands, as if attempting to convey something significant. Yet, no one could understand him. The villagers debated what to do next and concluded that harboring the madman posed too great a risk. Even if he had not committed this theft, suspicions surrounding him would persist and disrupt life in the village. With this decision made, he was placed on a boat and set far away from their community. A few kinder souls accompanied him to ensure his safety during his departure and warned him never to return. However, strange events began unfolding in the village soon after he was exiled. That same night and into the following day, those who had hit the madman developed sudden fevers and found bruises mysteriously appearing on their bodies. When asked about their condition, they all recounted similar dreams. 2 furious young men in their early 20s had struck them repeatedly with thin sticks during their sleep. The pain in their bodies seemed far too real for these experiences to have been mere dreams. As their families gathered around to inspect the injuries, they found deep scars on their backs resembling wounds from severe blows. It dawned on everyone that these weren't idle nightmares. They were tangible events with inexplicable origins. Another mystery came to light from those who had been awake at night. Villagers reported hearing strange noises resembling large animals moving through the streets. It sounded as if the very ground was trembling under their footsteps. Dogs barked incessantly throughout the night, but by morning, an eerie silence hung over the village. No dogs, cats, or birds could be seen anywhere. These events left the villagers disturbed and uneasy as they gathered to discuss what had transpired. The absence of animals heightened an already creeping sense of dread as they tried to piece together whether these occurrences were connected to the madman's departure or something even more unfathomable lurking beyond their understanding. The story spread like wildfire across the village. Everyone soon became aware of the strange incident, and it was widely believed to be true. In a village bustling with dogs and cats, the birds, curiously, carried on as if nothing unusual had occurred. One day, while many villagers were bathing near the river, they noticed 2 cows and an old man slowly making their way toward Bolipur from the opposite bank. The familiar boatman had ferried them across, but no one recognized the elderly man accompanying him. "Where did you get those cows from?" someone asked. The old man, with an air of urgency, said, "Take me to the Panchayat Pradhan. I will explain everything there." Word spread quickly that Unexplained's missing cow had been recovered. Before long, a crowd of curious villagers assembled beneath the large tamarind tree, including Untu and his family. The village panchayat gathered as well and began by questioning the visitor. The old man introduced himself as Nizamiya and admitted This cow was stolen from Pramanak's house last night by my own son. When asked where he was from, he replied, "Hadn't a bad village, just 2 villages away from here." At this revelation, the excited crowd grew angry. Some even lashed out at the old man, who was soon in danger of being beaten mercilessly. Sensing the situation spiraling out of control, the Panchayat head intervened and stopped the mob. Turning to Nizam Mia, the Panchayat then asked, "Why have you brought the cow back to our village? Don't you realize this could put your life at risk?" Nizam Mia explained the events leading up to his return. He revealed that his son had indeed stolen Unta's cow and kept it hidden at their home. At first, everything seemed normal. The cow ate and rested like any other day. However, later that night, something extraordinary occurred. A mysterious voice called out to his son and daughter-in-law from outside their house. Believing it might be a neighbor in distress, they stepped out to investigate. To their shock, 2 handsome young men in their early 20s stood waiting outside the house. Without warning, one of them raised his hand and slapped Nizam's son so hard that he fell to the ground and lost his ability to speak. "What you've done is wrong," one of the mysterious youths declared in a stern tone. "Because of your actions, our master has been dishonored." Before he could grasp what was happening, Nizamiya's son was struck again with a stick. Then, as suddenly as they appeared, the 2 strangers began to rise into the air and vanished into the night sky. When Nizam's son regained his senses, he recounted the strange encounter to his family. Filled with guilt and terror at what had transpired, Nizam decided it was the right thing to do. He would risk returning the stolen cow to Bolipur himself. "My conscience told me this was my responsibility," Nizam explained to the gathering. "It was my son who committed this wrongdoing, but if I could make amends on his behalf, I would do so, even at great personal cost." The villagers listened but remained incensed by what had occurred. Some attempted to attack Nizam again, but the Panchayat head stood firm. "The father cannot be punished for the crimes of his son," he declared. "Let us focus on justice and not lose ourselves in misguided anger." Eventually, order was restored. Unta Pramanik took back his cow but remained visibly upset by how events had unfolded. Meanwhile, the Panchayat reprimanded those who had attacked Nizam without fully understanding that harming him was a serious offense. To make amends for these rash actions, some villagers suggested seeking out Nizam Mia to offer him an apology and officially invite him back to Bolipur as a gesture of reconciliation. The search commenced, stretching across multiple villages, but no one could locate him. Despite all their efforts, Nizam Mia seemed to have vanished completely. Over time, life in Bolipur returned to normal. Little by little, people stopped talking about the odd series of events that had shaken their village. As with so many stories in small communities, this one too faded into memory, leaving behind a quiet sense of unease and wonderment that perhaps certain mysteries are best left unresolved. The story ended in an unexpected way, but there was another strange incident unfolding in the village, one that initially went unnoticed by everyone. A terrible event had struck. The livestock belonging to one household had gone missing. Cows, goats, and poultry were stolen in the dead of night. As time passed, this theft turned into a larger crisis. More than half of the village's animals were stolen, causing unrest and panic to ripple through the community. People began discussing the matter animatedly, trying to make sense of it all. Oddly enough, it was observed that in the homes where a wandering madman had previously sprinkled water, the animals remained unharmed. However, livestock from neighboring houses had vanished. Just a day after these strange happenings began, a woman ventured to the outdoor washroom late at night. Because it was situated at some distance from her house, she called on her husband to accompany her. On their way back, she stopped abruptly and pointed towards the sky, saying, "Look, what are those up there?" To their astonishment, they saw enormous birds flying overhead. What was even stranger was that these birds were clutching cows and goats in their talons as they soared through the air. The next morning, the couple shared their encounter with the entire village. A meeting was promptly organized, with all the male members and the Panchayat leaders in attendance. It was decided that a neighborhood watch would be formed. Teams consisting of one member from each household would take turns guarding the village to uncover who, or what, was behind these occurrences. During the first nights of guarding, There appeared to be a shift in the strange events. No livestock was stolen. Instead, animals were found dead in their pens, their necks broken and their bodies completely drained of blood. Shocked and confused, the villagers continued their nightly vigils, determined to uncover the truth. Days turned into nights, and though they vigilantly kept watch for 5 or 6 days, they couldn't determine the cause of these tragedies. One elder claimed to have witnessed something unusual. According to his account, he had lagged behind during one of the nightly patrols and spotted an eerie scene. A group of large, black dogs began emerging onto a path. These dogs were far larger than any he had ever seen. Riding on their backs were strange dwarf-like creatures adorned with spiny protrusions resembling those of a porcupine. The elder recounted how these bizarre beings slowly advanced along the road before vanishing altogether right before his eyes. Terrified and convinced that this was no ordinary matter, the elder hurried home to pray. Upon hearing this tale, the village became gripped by fear and concluded that something supernatural, something evil, was plaguing them. The panchayat leaders decided it was time to take drastic action. They called for all spiritual figures from neighboring areas, Kavarajas, Imam Sahibs, and Pandit Thakurs, to convene in their village and help find a solution to this terrifying mystery. Messages were sent out to nearby villages, inviting spiritual leaders who might hold the key to resolving their plight. It was agreed that these wise individuals would gather beneath the tamarind tree in the village center by the following afternoon. That evening, as usual, guards were stationed around the homes. Despite their vigilance, more dead animals were found come morning. Bloodless corpses of cows and goats lay in some households. When afternoon arrived, villagers gathered under the shade of the tamarind tree alongside the visiting spiritual leaders. As they narrated the strange events that had plagued them recently, one of the elders among the visitors listened intently before speaking up. "You all have made a grave mistake," he said solemnly. "From what I've heard, it seems that madman you drove away came here for a reason, perhaps to protect your village. By banishing him, you might have removed your only defense against these otherworldly creatures." Hearing this, guilt and realization began to weigh heavily on the panchayat chiefs and other villagers. Another visitor also chimed in. "This is no ordinary problem. It appears to be driven by malevolent spirits or ghouls that have taken notice of this place. But there's hope. I believe that if you show repentance and come together as a community, you may yet invite blessings upon your village." The elderly visitor then suggested organizing a communal prayer ceremony at once. He proposed that rice and pulses be gathered collectively from every household and used to prepare a meal for the entire village. Afterward, food should be distributed to all homes as part of a sacred ritual of unity and renewal. He expressed his belief that this act might summon back the madman who had been unjustly chased away. The other scholars and spiritual figures concurred with his suggestion. Preparations began immediately as hope sparked anew in the hearts of the villagers. Hope that perhaps this collective act would not only resolve their problems, but also bring. The next day, the village began preparations for communal prayers. Villagers collected rice and pulses, distributing food to everyone after it was cooked. Shortly after the ASR prayer, when the imam had just concluded, a man appeared riding a white horse. His sudden presence attracted attention, and as he drew nearer, the onlookers noticed that he resembled the village's eccentric madman. However, something was different about him. His appearance had transformed. A radiant light seemed to emanate from his clothes. When the man on the horse greeted everyone with a solemn salute, the villagers returned his gesture, watching him in shocked silence. The madman, long believed to be mute, began to speak. He addressed the crowd, saying he was not who they thought he was. Instead, he introduced himself as MD Abdurrahman and revealed that the man they had mistaken him for was his twin brother, MD Abdur Rahim. He continued, explaining that although his brother was mute from birth, he had been blessed by Allah with profound spiritual and religious wisdom. Abdur Rahman declared that their family home was in Pakistan and that his brother, Abdur Rahim, had come to this village to protect its people from danger, a threat it seemed the villagers were unaware of. The village chief stepped forward and humbly apologized for any wrongs done to Abdur Rahim, asking how and why he had come to save them. and what danger loomed over the community. The crowd began murmuring, and a villager raised another concern: the mysterious disappearance and occasional deaths of animals and birds in the area. They asked Abdur Rahman to explain this unsettling mystery. In response, Abdur Rahman shared an extraordinary tale. He spoke of a man named Abdul Aziz, a revered elder who lived in the village long ago. Many older residents recognized the name when it was mentioned. They recounted stories passed down through generations about Abdul Aziz. Some remembered him as a devout person, while others spoke of how mischievous jinns feared him as they would fear a tiger. Abdul Aziz's grave still rested safely in the village cemetery. At this point, Abdur Rahman revealed the connection. Abdul Aziz was his grandfather. After the 1947 partition of India and Pakistan, Abdul Aziz's family had left the village for Pakistan, but they carried with them the knowledge of a dark secret buried in the forest nearby. According to Abdur Rahman, dangerous dwarfish ghouls, 23 in number, had inhabited the forest. They were terrifying beings who could transform into various forms at will. The terrifying tribe consisted of 3 religious groups: Muslims, Hindus, and Christians. Their sole purpose was to sustain themselves by consuming animal blood, and they had ravaged other villages before turning their sights back on this one. Decades ago, these ghouls had been wreaking havoc on the village when Abdul Aziz intervened. Using his spiritual knowledge, he managed to imprison the ghouls in bottles and buried them beneath a tree deep within the forest. However, before being sealed away, the ghouls had vowed revenge. If they were ever freed, they would destroy all living beings in the village. 3 months prior, a violent storm swept through the area. Several trees were uprooted in its wake, including the one under which the enchanted bottles were buried. Somehow, in this chaos, the bottle seals broke open and released the ghouls once more. After decades of imprisonment, they were weak but quickly regained their strength over time by preying first on smaller creatures, like birds, and eventually escalating to livestock. Abdur Rahman explained that his family had been warned of this through their connection with benevolent jinns loyal to his grandfather's legacy. When his father received word from these jinns about the ghouls' release, he decided to send Abdur Rahim to capture them again before they could destroy the village. Capturing these entities was not a simple task. It required specific rituals and careful actions. Abdur Rahman emphasized that starting that night, there would be signs indicating their efforts to safeguard the villagers. He told them they might see 3 black dogs and 3 white horses roaming at night, manifestations of protective spiritual forces aligned against the ghouls. He urged everyone not to harm these animals or attempt to feed them if encountered during nocturnal hours. Furthermore, he cautioned anyone wandering out late at night to remain cautious. If they saw the black dogs or white horses, they should close their eyes momentarily before reopening them. The animals would remain visible for reassurance, but posed no threat. Abdur Rahman concluded by emphasizing that these ritual safeguards were essential in preventing harm from befalling both humans and animals in the village during this perilous time. The villagers listened intently, fear mingling with hope as they prepared for what lay ahead. 6 days from now, I will visit the house where you, my father, and my foolish brother are staying. Inshallah, all your problems will find resolution on that day, God willing. I urge you to act discreetly at night, so that no one else leave their homes. Abdur Rahman told me that we would need the presence of 3 individuals within these 6 days: an imam, a Hindu scholar, and a Christian priest with sufficient knowledge of Christianity. Ensure these 3 are present. After the Isha prayer, they must each stand at one of 3 roads near the tamarind tree. Afterward, my brother and I will arrive and provide further instructions. Abdur Rahman then headed in the direction from which Hazrat had come. Despite everyone urging him to stay, Hazrat declined and rode away on his horse. The villagers, bewildered and concerned, pledged to follow the instructions. However, a dilemma soon arose. While there was a respected imam and a knowledgeable Hindu scholar in the village, they realized they had no Christian priest. One of the elders suggested that a reputable Christian priest resided in a place called Ranagat. It was agreed that some villagers would travel there and request his presence for a day. The arrangements were swiftly made. During the 6 days leading up to the appointed time, strange occurrences began to trouble the village. At night, People reported hearing the loud howls of dogs and the thundering hooves of horses outside their homes. Eerie, unfamiliar noises echoed through the air, leaving an unsettling sense of foreboding. Finally, the awaited day arrived. From evening onward, the villagers anxiously gathered in anticipation of their visitors. Sometime after the Isha prayer, 3 figures appeared on white horses. As they approached, the villagers recognized them: Abdur Rahim, Abdur Rahman, twin brothers, and their elderly father. The trio greeted everyone respectfully. The brothers saluted the group before their father gestured toward the village chiefs. Addressing them directly, he instructed that everyone except the imam, Hindu scholar, and Christian priest should return home for the night. Without hesitation, the villagers did as they were told. What unfolded later left an indelible mark on the community. That night, those in their homes heard horrifying sounds, thunderous crashes, wails reminiscent of human cries, and screams echoing like a storm raging through the forest. It seemed as if some otherworldly battle was taking place deep within the woods. Animals in their homes grew restless and agitated, making terrified noises as if witnessing something unfathomable in the skies above. Then, as dawn broke, everything fell eerily silent. The following morning, everyone congregated by the tamarind tree, curious about what had transpired. The 3 spiritual leaders representing Islam, Hinduism, and Christianity sat nearby, visibly shaken. The villagers surrounded them and eagerly asked what had occurred during the tumultuous night. The leaders explained, "As you all went home last night, 3 more horses arrived, and we were invited to mount them without fear of harm. Swearing to protect your village at all costs, we set out together for the forest accompanied by our hosts, the 2 young twins and their father." They described how they reached the edge of a dense forest, where they encountered 3 black dogs and 3 white horses waiting under the towering trees. The elderly man instructed each spiritual leader to begin rituals aligned with their respective faiths. He marked a boundary around a specific gate-like area, explaining that no demon or malevolent spirit could pass through it. As their rituals commenced, they witnessed a surreal scene. The father and his sons mounted their horses alongside the other animals and ventured into the forest. Accompanying them were shadowy figures whose faces were obscured except for an indistinct presence, the sense that others walked among them. Suddenly, chaos erupted in the forest depths. Trees crashed to the ground, while lightning-like flames flashed through the sky. From afar, it seemed as though horses and dogs pursued scores of small creatures, like dwarves, that frantically sought refuge in the village. Yet these sinister beings were thwarted by the holy barriers created by the rituals. The battle raged on until it eventually subsided late into the night. Silence once more blanketed the village as dawn approached, when the elderly father and his sons returned on horseback with weary yet triumphant expressions. He spoke to those waiting. "Thanks to your efforts and unwavering faith, we were able to vanquish the evil spirits plaguing your village. Without your assistance, we could not have succeeded against these ghouls." The villagers expressed profound gratitude to their visitors, knowing that their safety and peace in their homeland had been restored through a combined act of faith and unity among diverse religions. While the old man recounted his tale, tears streamed down his face as everyone gathered to ask what had happened. In a somber tone, he explained that his naive son had perished while battling the ghouls. Alongside him, for Parhezgar Jinn also lost their lives. The Jinn carried away the bodies and departed for Pakistan, but they managed to eradicate the threat, killing all the ghouls. Before leaving, the old man declared that from that day onward, no evil force would ever trouble the village again. Shortly after, 3 horses were brought forth, and as the 3 riders mounted them and prepared to depart, their words moved everyone present to tears. It is said that the old man presented 3 gifts to these individuals. However, only they knew what had been bestowed upon them, as they were sworn not to reveal it. After that day, neither the old master nor his son was seen in the village ever again. And so, this unusual chapter came to a close. Dear listeners, long ago, this village faced an overwhelming infestation of ghoul-like jinns that brought fear and turmoil to its people. But through the tireless efforts of many wise elders, these demonic entities were driven away. Nowadays, such dark beings are seldom mentioned, and those valiant protectors of old have nearly vanished. Most have passed on, leaving only a few behind as reminders of their courage. This story holds a strange and compelling sadness, particularly for the old man's son, who gave his life for the safety of others. It serves as a reminder that heroes are often those who stand unflinching in the face of danger, sacrificing themselves for the greater good. Though they may be gone, their legacy lives on in the hearts of those they saved. Thank you for listening to this remarkable tale. If you enjoyed the story and haven't yet subscribed to our channel, I kindly invite you to do so now. Your support helps us share more stories like these.